Hello, everyone. If you've just joined us, my name is Jenny. I'm a partner manager here at ShipStation, and I'm happy to introduce our partners, DataAutomation. They gave a webinar pretty similar to this, but it was the first part of this webinar series over Zapier, and you can view that on our webinar page. And we'll also have a recording for this as well sent to you afterwards. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to our friend Will from DataAutomation to introduce himself and kick off the webinar. And thanks for joining us, everyone.
How's it going? Will Christensen here from DataAutomation, a proud partner of ShipStation. We enjoy our partnership with them. We're going to be talking today about Zapier. This is part 2. Like Jenny mentioned, you can and should, if you get a second, take a look at part 1. That being said, if you're here and weren't in part 1, not a problem. We are going to give you some background behind what's going on here and help you get to that next step. So let's get started. So DataAutomation, we are an automation and integration consultancy based out of Athens, Georgia. My name is Will Christensen. We are approved development partners for multiple SaaS companies, not just ShipStation. We're a sister company to Selly Labs. They're the owners of a product called Feedback Genius that you might be familiar with. It helps with Amazon feedback. And we're part of a tech conglomerate called Roundsphere, where we build SaaS companies and other tech companies like this one. Just recapping on our last webinar to give you some background if you didn't get a chance to look at that or to refresh your memory. Zapier is a platform that, as you can see, has various apps on the platform. We went over what to automate and what not to automate, as far as having data to push back and forth between these different systems. You can see they've got Google Sheets, Gmail, Trello, and a lot of others. There's actually over 1,000 apps on the platform. We also learned how to automate, so how to kind of connect dots here. You can see there's some templates down here. We went through some of that. We learned about Zapier and some of the different connections or pieces, how it works, some of the nuts and bolts. And then, like I mentioned before, we went over one of these Zap templates, so you can see kind of how to add new orders to a Google spreadsheet or something like that. So if you're interested, you're welcome to go to dataautomation.com/Zapier101. That'll redirect you over to that other landing page where that other site is concerned. So that's just a quick hyperlink we made so that you could find that webinar easily. All right. So first things first, we've got a poll. So Jenny, if you want to go ahead and pull that up, we're going to be asking you what type of company are you, so we can tailor our information there. So go ahead and take a quick poll there. That'd be appreciated. All right. Take a look at those results. Perfect. So it looks like today we've got some drop shippers here, and we've also got some e-commerce sellers. That's fantastic. All right, go ahead and jump in, and we'll head to the next slide. All right, we've also got another poll. We're going to ask you about where you fit in the business. Give you a quick second to fill that out. Perfect. So it looks like we've got some sales here, some product managers, and some executive team members. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Last question here. Are you currently using ShipStation? is our next question. Want to give some context if you're not. Awesome, we'll go ahead and take a look at those results. Perfect. All right, so today we're going to go over how to build a custom Zap. We're also going to go over how to troubleshoot your Zaps. So what does it mean? Something breaks. Integrations are prone to break. That's the nature of the data that's flowing through there. There are exceptions that aren't covered. And then what to do if my target app doesn't have components you need or isn't integrated with Zapier yet. That can be a real problem if you're trying to connect dots or make things happen. We're going to talk about how to handle that. So first off, how to build a custom Zap. So we've talked about templates in the past before. Templates kind of walk you through the process step by step. This is more like coming to the table having ingredients, but not a step-by-step recipe that's laid out for you. Maybe think of it in terms of improvising a little bit. It's not limited to 2 components. You can include a search step where you can go find a specific email address to make sure it's not a duplicate. You can include a filter step so that you only add hot leads to the CRM instead of the ones that aren't as good, things like that. You can see there are a bunch of options that come in and kind of help you see what's there. So we've got this specific Zap that we're going to go through. You can see that this one is 10 actions long. So at our company, one of our sales team members has a fair amount of work to do after a contract is signed. And he's actually made it so that a lot of the work associated with that signed contract is automated, clear into 10 steps. You'll notice that he did label the name of this Zap appropriately. Caleb's whole job. It's not totally true, but it did automate and take a lot of the pain out of what he was having to do. So here he's got a trigger, and this is specifically associated with an email. So you can build an email search inside Gmail and search for anything that comes in. So specifically, he searches for an email from HelloSign that says everyone has signed a contract. Then after he's chosen his trigger app, so his trigger app here is Gmail, selects which trigger he wants, and he then has to authenticate. So we're gonna actually walk you through how to do that here in a moment. But after you've kind of connected those dots, you're then able to define parameters, like I mentioned, with the search parameters that are coming through. So you're able to say, only emails from HelloSign, and on top of only emails from HelloSign, I'm also looking for them only that say everyone has signed. Because if you've ever gotten an email from HelloSign, sometimes you get something that comes through there, and it's not just something that's about that, it says you signed. Well, you don't want that to trigger this whole thing and create invoices and all that garbage. You want it to be very specific. So you can define parameters a lot of times around a trigger so that it doesn't kick off at the wrong time. The last piece of that is testing the step. So you're actually able to go in and see some of the test data. That's important for when you're having to map that data to a new place coming down the pipe. The next piece of the puzzle, you can see here, Caleb goes through and he searches. So he takes the email address and the deal number associated with that deal that was signed, and he goes and looks for that deal. This is a symbol for our CRM that we use called ActiveCampaign. So he finds that deal, and then he uses the deal number and the email address associated with that to find a contact. Then he goes and grabs that information and he moves that deal to signed. So that's all automatically done. So you can take all the way through those pieces and do what he needs to. So that's the search step. He went and found data, then he did something. So actions create things. So you can actually do a search and create in the same step. This is Airtable. It's a system we use to help us keep track of revenue alongside QuickBooks. And we're using this to go and find and create a new row inside what we call our revenue tracker. And then after that, here's the Trello board where we actually keep track of our project management, and we create a Trello card associated with that. So if you were a seller and you wanted to create a light version of a system to kind of keep track of some of these pieces, maybe you had some specific orders that had to go through specific workflows beyond just sitting and awaiting shipment, you could create cards and checklists associated with those cards and kind of manage some of that workflow before that item was ready to ship. And you could do that by connecting everything up there. This is called a filter. That's the next piece on here. The filter allows you to stop the action if you don't want it to move forward. So an example might be if Caleb wasn't able to filter based on the search that was done in his Gmail account, he can make it say, if the name or subject of the email does not include the word everyone, stop. And or it could be the other way, only continue if the subject line contains everyone, so that he doesn't have that firing off on random pieces. You could do this with orders as well. I only want my new order that's coming in from Amazon to get punched out or pushed out to my dropshipper, to you know, I only want to forward that email on that contains that order information when the brand that's in the name of the order contains this word or that word or does not contain. We're going to stop here real quick and see if there's any questions. You're welcome to ask questions throughout in the chat. Caleb's here on the line. He's one of our Zapier experts as well, and is able to push those out. So if there's any questions, we're going to stop here for just a second and see if there's anything we can do. Let's see, there seems to be a conceptual gap between things we need to do and how to figure out how to do them in Zapier. Okay, gotcha. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, we're trying to decide, okay, well, we know what needs to be automated. We're just having a hard time doing that inside Zapier. And we're actually going to go over that in detail today. So you're in luck, you're in the right place. We are going to go through, and I'm actually going to put my hands around some of those. So if you have a use case or two that you want to put in the chat, we'll consider those as we go. We've got some use cases already in mind, but if I find a good one in the chat, we can go where it needs to go. One thing to consider as you're taking the conceptual gap, so to speak, of what to do there, we at DataAutomation ask three things about any process. First thing we ask is, where's the data now? The second thing we ask is, where does the data need to go? And the third thing we ask is, what triggers the process to start? So where is that data? Is that data in ShipStation? Is that data in a marketplace that's not connected to ShipStation and you're trying to get it into ShipStation? What are you trying to do? Then what needs to happen to it? Where does it need to go? So in the instance of that drop shipper, we're trying to send them order information. Well, the data is inside ShipStation. It was in Amazon, but Amazon brings it in automatically to ShipStation, and then it needs to be shipped back out to that fulfillment, that 3PL provider, that drop shipper. So where's the data now? It's in ShipStation. Where's the data need to go? It needs to go over to our 3PL. And what needs to happen to it in between? Nothing really. It just needs to be sent over there. And then a fourth or a question you could consider in there as well is, what triggers it to start? Well, it came in there, came into our section. All right, well, we'll keep going there. Feel free to keep asking questions. Caleb can answer those as well. We're going to go over how to troubleshoot some of my Zaps when they break, and we'll kind of connect those dots. All right. So while setting up a Zap, you may have run into this before, where it comes up and says, "Oh crap!" And Zapier is always really funny about their error messages. This one specifically says, "Bargle, we could not find a page to stream that post," and it's got a frowny face. My face goes frowny every time I see this red message or a red message like this. So here's some common problems you run into. It won't authenticate. The test when you're trying to set everything up fails. There's no test data that came through, or there's no sample data. So those are some common examples. Sample data is not there for a specific filter. We're actually going to break away from the slide here in just a second. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when you have a situation, and I actually think I already set it up. Yep, I did. So this is going back to that active campaign that we mentioned before. This is specifically when a new deal is added. You can see it's connected to Caleb's account, and it's pulling in samples here or testing the step. When you get to the filter here, let's say that we said, okay, I want to make it so that this only continues if the lead was from ShipStation.com. So I click this button right here, and it says, cool, show me all of the opportunity or all of the data there. And if you look up here, do you see how it says deal contact email? It says test@test.com. Well, I'm not going to be able to actually test this because when I select this, the thing that's in here is not associated with that. It's not gonna actually go through. So I'm saying only continue if this text contains, so we know that it's test@test.com. That's not gonna work. So if I hit test right here, you'll see that it comes up and says Zapier would not have continued. If that wasn't what you were expected, go ahead and test. And you can see that this sample data is test@test.com here. That's great, except for, how do you test to make sure that it actually is going to work? What if you don't know what's in there? And so a lot of times what you'll need to do is go back up in to pull your samples. You'll need to retest that, fetch and continue, and have it pull in another example. And the best way to do that is to go edit or try to make the thing trigger again so that you can then go back and retest that data. It is a common thing that you will find errors every once in a while for different pieces of it. All right, let's get back into the presentation here. All right, we went over this. So the solutions associated with a lot of those things that you'll see, honestly, can't give better advice than be methodical. Go back in, double check that your password was correct. I find that a lot of times when something won't authenticate, it's because I've left a space on the end. It's because I copied and pasted that email address incorrectly. A lot of times what you can do is trick the system. And what I mean by trick the system is you go in here and it'll actually let you filter or skip the step. So once you've hit continue and you've kind of gone to that pieces, a lot of times if right here, if this breaks, it'll come up with a little button right here on the left that says skip this step. That's what I mean by trick the system. Look for the ways around how to get that data in there. Go back, trigger it with something that will trigger things appropriately so that you can get it set up the first time and get it turned on. Let's see here. And I do see some of these other questions coming in. We will pause and look at those. Let's talk about errors that happen when you're inside and they're specifically associated with something that's happening while it's running. So here's your code had an error, traceback, most recent file, user code, line 28. So this is specifically associated with an error when we had a Python step. So we have a code step where we're actually doing some arbitrary coding in between some of our pieces. And oftentimes the messages that you'll get back from Zapier they do look just like this. So it's important that you take a look at what's going on. So the API might be down, your code had an error, the provided data that you were hoping to filter off of doesn't exist. There was a field that didn't have a value. There's a duplicate document number error. Just things that it's hard to kind of connect those dots. Zapier is actually incredibly powerful. One of the things that we love about Zapier is how well they do with giving us the ability to auto replay. So I'm going to take you over to my task history inside my account. And in my task history, you'll notice I've got a lot of different things going on in here. This right here is my auto replay button. Very, very powerful button. Good idea to turn that on. It's only available in their second tier of paid accounts, but it's very powerful. Allows you to actually have Zapier, when the error is a known error, they're able to connect dots and automatically replay that for you. Pretty powerful stuff. Zapier support, although they don't have live chat support or anything like that, they do have support via email that's lightning fast. I've seen them reply back in 15 minutes. Their average response time is just 2 hours, which is pretty amazing considering how big their user base is. So I've always had really good luck with them, and I generally give myself a rule of thumb: if I've spent 15 minutes on it and I can't figure out what to do, a lot of times I just take a deep breath, stop, and send that back over to them. It's always a good idea to check your task history, like I was showing you before, where you can go back in and look at specific points in your task history, and then you can also re-authenticate. Surprisingly enough, I've actually found that clearing your browser cache can make a big difference. So doing a Control-Shift-R hard refresh on the page can make a difference as to whether or not that Zap will function to kind of connect those dots. How to contact Zapier support. So let's talk about that a little bit. Zapier lets you actually, if you choose this option that says having trouble with Zaps, you select the specific, send a screenshot if you can. I'd recommend an app called Cloud App. It's a great screenshot tool. There are many out there. I've had good luck with Cloud App. It's getcloudapp.com for sending screenshots. Yeah, they're solid individuals there. I'm gonna take a quick pause here. I know it doesn't say that I've got questions there, and it looks like a lot of the questions that are coming up are getting answered by Caleb, so we'll be good to go there, and we'll keep going. Let's see. So my target app doesn't have the components I need or isn't integrated with Zapier. That can obviously be a real problem when you're running into, you're on Zapier, you're flipping through, and you're like, oh, cool, I finally have, Zapier, and you go look for your 3PL in the list, and they don't have a Zapier app. Well, how do I send them an order if they don't have a Zapier app? That's frustrating. Well, you've got a couple of different options. And see, hey, do you know if this action's being considered? A lot of times it is something that's out there, and it's coming down the pipe. It may be in their beta version of their app. The contact, contacting Zapier support is always a really good idea. And the reason we recommend contacting Zapier is they actually keep a log of everyone who's requested a specific feature. And they go back and they'll make sure that the app developers who are building that know exactly which things need to be built. If the app is not on Zapier, that obviously can be a problem. We're going to actually go over how to do something a little more complicated here in a minute, where we show you a brief look into an app on Zapier called Webhooks that will actually integrate with most any API. So even if it's not on Zapier yet, this is kind of a hidden gem inside Zapier. We use it often when we can't find the app we want. So we're able to still use our workflows even though the app isn't yet on Zapier. So we recommend first contacting their support to see if they're on Zapier privately. That's very common. People can create what's called a private beta or a private only app. The only way you can get access to that is through a link from their support team. And so you'd be surprised at how often the app is actually available. It's just not yet available to the public. You can contact their support to see if they're willing to get on Zapier. And there's lots of good resources for that. We're a preferred development partner of Zapier. You're welcome to reach out to us, and we can try to help contact that company, get them on Zapier as well. Zapier support often will know whether or not they're on Zapier privately. And then, believe it or not, sometimes you can just Google and say specific 3PL on Zapier, and Google will do a good job of showing you a support page that's buried somewhere in the support docs that shows that they do have a Zapier app. And then lastly, we recommend looking for whether or not they have an API, because generally speaking, if they don't have an API yet, they're probably not going to have a Zapier integration. But if they do, there's a good chance that it can be built or maybe is in the works. Okay, jumping down the list here, let's talk about webhooks. So the only downside of webhooks is that Zapier does have a little, they are harder, they're less supportive of webhooks because they are more complicated, but they are very, very powerful from the standpoint of what they can do and how they can connect those dots. They can integrate with most any API just right out of the box. We here at DataAutomation are happy to help with that. After the call, after the webinar, you'll be able to see on the page there, we're offering free 30-minute help sessions. We've actually been able to help a lot of people set up different things as we get on and look at different pieces of what's possible. So definitely take a look at what you see there, and feel free to book us for a slot. We're happy to help. Webhooks are instantaneous data, and so we're actually going to show you an example of a webhook here, and we can open that up. So this is what the webhook thing looks like. Let me show you how to find that. If you're on Zapier and you literally just search the word webhook, it'll come up with Webhooks by Zapier. And then you have two different options here. You have, well, three. You have retrieve pull, you have a catch hook, and you have a catch hook raw. So this catch hook raw allows you to receive like a picture if it's coming through from a post request. So an example of where this might be valuable, if you log into your ShipStation account, you'll notice in the ShipStation account that there's a thing called webhooks. And webhooks are actually very, very common in a lot of systems. And the webhooks, when you go over to that section, they are very powerful in that they allow you to copy and paste a specific URL into this catch hook. And so if you hit this right here, you'll see it'll let you choose a specific child. Think of this as a bullet pointed list. You've got contact, and then the first bullet is name, and the first item underneath that bullet is Mike. So once it gets you there, you get this this hook right here. You can paste that inside your ShipStation account or whatever account you've got that actually says anything about webhooks, and it will automatically start pushing orders to you. So the ShipStation account on Zapier does this already. It's pre-formatted. It's a lot easier to use. But look for that word webhooks inside your platform so that you're getting onto. it makes a huge difference as far as what's possible in showing you kind of how to connect those dots. So that's one example. If you're looking at one that has a retrieve poll, so you can actually fill this out, put in the URL of the endpoint, and fill in the authentication information, and you can put it right to querying or looking in a list for the data that you're trying to pump in. So just because it's not on Zapier doesn't mean that it's not possible to push it in here. I'll go over this one real briefly. This is webhooks in action form. This is API speak for how you interact with other applications. So you can do a put request, a post request, you can do a custom request, you can do a get request. So these things are the computer way of transferring data back and forth between two different systems. And what you may or may not know is that you actually do get requests on your browser all the time. When you go to google.com, and I type in google.com and hit enter, that actually did a get request to Google from my browser and said, hey, Google server, what do you got as far as a get request is concerned? It kind of brings back here. So obviously pretty complex stuff there, but I wanted to show you or make the point that just because it's not in Zapier doesn't mean that you can't kind of push through some of these things, and in that 30-minute help session, we're happy to kind of help you connect something that may not already be on Zapier. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what systems you're currently using. If there are multiple, which ones would you like to automate first? So CRMs, marketing automation, ERP, project management, or accounting systems. So if you don't mind, Jenny, putting that question up for us. Perfect. So it looks like most of you are most interested in your inventory management tool. It's not a problem. It's great, actually. All right, go ahead and head to the next there. All right. So let's talk about the ShipStation Zapier app. We're going to get our hands dirty a little bit here. These are just some common examples that we run into, and we will kind of connect dots here. So let's see, open this up. All right, so here are your options for what's coming out of ShipStation. And I'm actually going to walk you through step by step how to connect some dots here. And we're going to specifically, one of you asked about if the data is not provided specifically when the trigger comes in, what do you do with that, or how do you handle that information? So here you can see we can trigger this based on when a new order comes in, when an order is shipped, and then you can go down to the item level as well. So it triggers for each individual item, and it also triggers for each individual item that's been shipped. So here are some different options. Specifically, the use case we're going to talk about is sending your orders over to another system. So let's say you've got a 3PL that you want to send that to, and that 3PL will accept orders in the form of an email. So you're going to take order information from here, and we're going to push it over there. So I'm going to choose new order, and for these guys, I'm going to assume that the whole order goes over to this 3PL. So I hit save and continue, and you can see it asks me to hook up an account here, and I've got some accounts that I've already got connected. You can see, they're working, but I'm going to show you how to actually connect one. Here you go into the API key and the API key secret. This is information that you can get from your ShipStation account. So let me drag that over here. You can see here's the back part of your ShipStation account. You get that by clicking on this little icon up in the top right-hand corner where it has the gear. You click on account and it comes over here and you see where it says API settings, okay? So if you click on API settings, you'll see that there are API keys here, and you'll paste those API keys right into this spot right here, and then you'll be able to get at that data. Lest you be worried about the account there, that's a test account we have, and we'll regen those API keys, so we're not worried about it being exposed to the webinar. But basically, once those are in there, and these are just like a password, they're that important to keep secret and safe. So once you've pasted them in there, you click yes, goes right through, and it shows you, hey, here's how it's connected. So we're gonna use this account, and here's all the different stores. You can actually filter. So if I click that drop-down menu, it reaches out to ShipStation and say, here's all my different stores that come in there. And you can select and say, you know, I only want to ship, or I only want my Amazon stuff to go to this 3PL. So we're gonna go down the list, and it's gonna fetch and continue a sample order. So this is where you would see that error that we mentioned before. Sometimes this is going to come up and it's going to say, oh crap, there is no data for you to go off of. And if it does in fact come up and say there is no data for you to come off of, that can be a real problem. When you're in that situation where there is no data, the best thing that you can do is go back into your target system. So in ShipStation's situation, go back into your target system and create a manual order. And you go create that manual order, make sure that it's in the store that you selected, and then go back to ShipStation, back to Zapier, and hit test again. And once you retest, you'll see that it comes right in here, and you hit retest, fetch and continue, and it's gonna pre-fill that. This is pretty key to the process. One, because if you hit skip step here and you have a blank payload, it's not gonna let you map things further in the process. If you do have stuff in the payload and you are able to make that manual order go through, it'll let you take that test data and kind of push it through into this next step. So now we have the opportunity to decide, okay, now where are we going to send this? So you have a couple of different options if we're talking about a 3PL. Maybe that 3PL, instead of an email, like you're going to send an email, you could actually set up a Google spreadsheet and say, hey, Mr. 3PL, I want you to fulfill every order that comes into this Google spreadsheet. And they're like, okay. And you go into that Google spreadsheet, and they can even, you know, paste their tracking number information back into that spreadsheet. You can kind of use that as a way to coordinate between you and that 3PL. Obviously, that's a pretty low-tech way of doing it, but it works, and in a lot of situations, it'll facilitate that need. Another thing you could do is you could go in here to the email, and you can see that you can just do straight up email by Zapier. In this situation, I'm actually going to show you how to do it in Gmail. So here in Gmail, I'm going to send an email, and I can basically create a template that's going to go out to my specific dropshipper. So you can see that I've got several different options for my different email addresses. I'm going to go down here, and I've got this email address. You're going to want to choose and connect an email address that's specific to your company. When you authenticate, it's literally, you know, same as what we saw up here, where you were having to click connect account. It brings up this window. It's going to bring up a window just like this, except for that you're actually going to sign in to your Gmail account and give it access. So here we're going to say, okay, I'm going to send this email to 3PL at my3pl.com, right? Whatever email address they give you to kind of connect those dots. And that's not going to change based on what's there. And then you can say, you know what? I actually want to send this to myself as well, just to make sure that it's coming through. You could BCC yourself if you wanted to. You can do some from options here. The one that's required is your subject line. So you're going to say new order from, and put in the name of your business, my ecom business. And if you wanted to, you could even put in the order number. So this is where the magic happens. You click on this insert button right here, and it opens up and says, okay, here's the order number. So you can see it's going to say my new order from my ecom business, and here's the order number. If I come up here, I can turn that on and off. So right now it's showing me the order number. If I turn that off, you'll see that it's actually showing me the title or the field name, so to speak. Kind of a handy feature if you want to kind of see what it looks like, it's going to do that. So you can say, hi, Bob, I've got a new order for you to process. And then you're going to say, order number, and you got to kind of list out what are the things that this guy wants to see. He wants to see the order number. He wants to see the items. He wants to see the destination address. And he probably wants to see, if you've got multiple origin addresses, you may want to see that as well. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to map this all out. So I hit that up and I pull in my order number. There's that. And then if I hit this button again, I can actually search this and I can pull in my items. So if I go in here, I've got item names, and they're a comma separated list of items that have been ordered. And then I do my ship to, and you can see I've got, ship to information that I can pull in there. So I'm sending this to Iceland. And the origin, I can hard code the origin and say, I'm always in Athens, GA. So I'm not gonna have that be something that I get in there and connect that way. So it's in there. I can give it a label so that it's associated every time. And then I hit continue. And then here you can see it actually shows it to me. Hi, Bob, I've got a new order for you to process. Here's the order number. Here's the items in the comma separated list that I want ordered. And obviously I'm missing like quantity and several things like that you need to get in there. But it gives you an idea, not a full address, but you need to give them the full address. Then you can send that to your Gmail account. That will actually send you a full-blown email. So let me show you what that looks like. When that email comes in, it literally is going to forward that through. Oh, it's going to show us an error. That's actually good, because we're talking about how to troubleshoot, right? So the error, it's saying that it's got an error. It's thinking, okay, so this is a good example of what happens sometimes when you run into a situation where didn't work exactly as I'd wanted it to. So if I refresh the page here, and it comes back. So I just refreshed the whole page, and it took me right back to this page, and we're gonna hit send test again and see if that works. And it's showing me an error again, but it's actually not even showing me which error it was. So I'm gonna try our first step of authenticating again. And I'm gonna flip over to a different account here that I know is connected appropriately. And we're going to see if this other account works. So all I did was switch down, went back, changed my account, hit send test to Gmail, and we're going to see if that's working. Okay, good. So it says the email was sent, so that makes us happy. We're like, sweet, this is totally awesome. It did exactly what it was supposed to. And we're going to see if that email actually came through. So interestingly enough, it did come through. So I'll show you what that looks like. You can see here, hey Bob, I've got a new order to process, and it brought in that information. And then it says, hey, 3PL, my3pl.com doesn't exist. So you can see the email did in fact go through, did what it needed to. And the last step of your process is to finish and turn that puppy on. And then from then on out, it'll push things through and get to where it needs to go. All right, so let's jump back in here to our presentation. So you now should understand a little bit better how to build a custom Zap. Obviously, there's a lot more that can go into it, and we'll cover that in future webinars. You know how to troubleshoot the Zap to some degree or another. Use Zapier help when needed, but remember to go back to the source. You know what to do if your target app or components aren't integrated. And we've got a little bit of time here for some more questions. Any other questions that we wanted to go over? Looks like Caleb's been doing a good job of answering most of your questions right in the thread. Any other questions that we wanted to go over? Okay, I got one here. What do I do if I don't know the first thing about connecting dots? I want to try to figure out where to go for webhooks, or I want to use that webhooks thing, and I want to figure out how to appropriately manage or understand APIs. There's actually a ton of fantastic YouTube videos that go into, you know, what is an API, how does an API function, give you some more detail on that. All right, let's jump through. We're going to do a poll now about our next webinar to see what we'd like to talk about, and go ahead and throw that out for everyone to answer. Awesome. So it looks like most everyone's interested in web scraping for our next webinar. We've got some people that are interested in Zapier Part 3. All right, fantastic. Feel free to book us if you head over to Zapier ShipStation Help. It'll redirect you to the page where you can get us hooked up for a free 30-minute help session. We'll talk about some of these future things in our future webinars. Web scraping sounds like the one that's on the docket, so we'll talk through that and get that scheduled. We're excited to be here. If you have any questions, Caleb is your man, so Caleb at DataAutomation.com. Also, obviously, if you're got any questions about ShipStation, sales at ShipStation.com. We'd love to help you automate your e-commerce processes by using ShipStation to bring in those orders and Zapier to push them around to wherever they need to go. Thanks for coming, everybody. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Will, for presenting to us, and just thank you for making the time for us. Everyone who was able to attend this webinar is actually going to be sent out via email, the recording by next week, so you'll see that in your inbox next week. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at sales@shipstation.com or webinars@shipstation.com, and we should be able to answer those questions. Thank you, and have a great Wednesday.